Okay, our second talk this morning on conversation with leaders in LIS, and we motivate and encourage all our members to take up leadership positions in the IGBIS and LIASA and even in the broader profession. So what we're doing is that we are asking our leaders to share their career progression and key aha moments and insights that motivated and inspired them. So they will share the experiences that brought them to where they are today, and we encourage them to share for what is comfortable with them so that others can learn from their career progression. So today, we are talking to Ms. Naomi Haasbroek. She is a past president of LIASA from 2010 to 2012, and she held the chair of the IFLA Africa section from 2009 to 2011. And she is currently a director of Project Space, her own project and events management company. So without further ado, I'm going to hand over to Naomi. Welcome, Naomi.
Thank you very much, Ingrid. It is really such a pleasure for me to be here today. And good morning, everyone. I was very honored to be asked to speak to you today, and I hope that we can consider it a bit of a conversation around my experiences and hopefully some inspiration to get people to understand what it means to become involved with the association on a broader level and the benefits that it can bring. I'm going to share a few slides with you as we go through. I also want to obviously very much thank IGBIS and the committee for inviting me to join you today. And I've been asked to share my journey. And let me just find my presentation. There we are. All right, I've been asked to share my leadership journey in LIASA and some insights in what it means to lead within the association and to participate on a wider level than one's own daily job. I do hope that in the process, I can inspire people to become involved. So these are more or less the items that I am going to be concentrating on. Speaking about leadership in general, my thoughts about leadership, briefly my career, my LIASA journey, and I want to share some highlights, especially during the time that I was president of LIASA, and perhaps answering the question, why? Why participate? Why join LIASA? Why putting your hand up for leadership? And I would like to leave you with some tips and takeaways. First of all, I'd like to remind you of the vision of LIASA as it appears in the Constitution. It speaks to the role of LIASA in providing leadership. As a basic human right, access to information and knowledge is critical and key to the development of the communities and individuals in our libraries and in South Africa. Libraries are so key in providing access, but political agendas and competition for funds results in libraries often being at the back end of the political agenda. And libraries are not always getting the support that they need. And from my viewpoint, this means that LIASA here needs to step in and provide the leadership in the LIS environment, important to advocate for libraries, because if we don't stand up for libraries, who will? And I'm sure you are all very much aware of various libraries that are being closed here in Cape Town, where I am, and across the country. And although funding imperatives are there and everybody needs to look at where their priorities lie, LIASA and the leaders within LIASA need to advocate for libraries, to be the official voice for LIS in South Africa, to make sure that LIS is firmly on the national agenda, and that the people in the positions of power that make certain decisions understand how libraries affect their communities. And that is often the only place where people have access to vital information for everyday living, and not to forget education as well. And then, of course, LIASA's role with regards to the professional body, making sure that there are standards in place for the library profession. And this, of course, is a whole other conversation and important one to understand the fact that LIASA is a professional body, and as qualified librarians, this is where we need to be at to make sure that we develop. And I'm sure many of you are currently studying, and this is very important, that you increase your knowledge, that you do the basic research within the field to make sure that libraries in South Africa are moving with the times, are flexible, and are able to deal with all the challenges that we face every day. So what do we mean when we speak about leadership? I think it is not always clear what people mean by the concept of leadership. We have a manager who plans and coordinates and organizes a team of people or an organization. The leader has a different job. The leader has to motivate, influence, and inspire people to follow. And of course, most importantly, a leader has a clear vision for the future. The leader has to inspire, motivate, show the way, as well as creating an ideal environment for the team of people that follow the leader to be able to know where they are going and to perform very well according to everybody's different capacities. So having a clear vision is not useful unless you can communicate that to people. You need to be able to convince people of your vision, that that is the way to go. Not that a leader makes the decisions on their own. You have to consult with your team. You have to look at the wider world, at the social environment. A leader has to be socially aware, politically aware, to make sure that wherever they are taking the association or the country or the team that they are leading, that it is at the time the best choice to make. And of course, it's always important to have that passion. If you're not passionate as a leader, you will not have people follow you. You will see I also have self-leadership here. I think this is very key to being a good leader. So what do I mean by self-leadership? Before you can lead people, you need to lead yourself. You need to be very self-aware. You need to know what are your strengths, what are your weaknesses, so that you can have people around you that can supplement your strengths and perhaps step in where you are less than adequate. So self-awareness, setting of personal goals. You need to know where you're going. And I'll refer a little bit to these personal goals and how that can influence your career path or your leadership path. When you are a leader, you need to understand that you lead by example. You cannot say one thing, ask people to do certain things if you don't do it yourself. So first of all, lead by example, be a role model. And again, I will refer to the fact that role models was very critical in my career path. I found that I could emulate certain traits that I saw in other people, and that was important. So remember, a leader should be a role model, and you are indeed, you can influence people, either good or bad. Leadership, self-leadership is a lifelong learning journey. I like to always say that I learn something new every day. As you go along, where you find yourself, sometimes in new and challenging situations, if you're a leader, you have to learn to navigate that. So you need to manage yourself. You need to manage other people. You need to manage expectations. It is a lifelong journey of adding to your arsenal of skills and knowledge and your skill set that you bring to any leadership position. And of course, it's important to be very focused, very deliberate in the strategic direction that you take your association or your organization. And of course, it takes a lot of commitment. You have to be committed to that role. You can't have a half-baked approach to leadership. I'm going to just share a little bit of my own professional career path. This has now been 38 years, and I retired in 2020 during the pandemic. And it is very interesting if you do a little bit of a look back to what happened over those 38 years. And one sometimes forgets, but every part of my journey has certainly given me some skills and knowledge that I could apply as I have gone along. I was not fortunate enough to study full-time when I left school, so I immediately started work in a public library. So I had some experience in public libraries, also in academic library, and I fell in love with the profession. It interested me. I liked the environment. So I then, while I was working, embarked on part-time studies, which in itself was, of course, challenging, studying part-time. At that time, I also had small children. So one has to be committed and focused to actually complete that. And I know that's the reality for many people, but persistence and not giving up is the name of the game. I found myself at Itemba Labs, a research laboratory in the nuclear physics field in 1987. And I stayed there, heading up the library and information services, building it up from basically a one-man library to a more fully functional library with more professional librarians, expanded the services, updated the software, the systems, and I realized that my niche lay in specialized libraries. I valued the experience I had in public libraries and the academic library, but the specialized research type library certainly became my niche and my comfortable space. During the 31 years, I was lucky in that I was given a fair amount of freedom in how I managed the library service and my involvement in the organization as a whole. And this led to me becoming involved in international scientific conferences. It is very important for a research environment to have international scientific conferences where the research and the data is shared. So that became quite a critical factor, and the library and myself became responsible for hosting and organizing these conferences over the years. I think there was plus minus a total of 60 international conferences that I was involved in my career at Itemba. And of course, it was a steep learning curve, but one I enjoyed very much. The research and academic environment was also one that I felt very comfortable with. And again, I think I'd like to emphasize, if there are opportunities and gaps that you are interested in, you need to step up and make yourself available, and you will be surprised at perhaps the growth and the experience and the joy that you find in doing something different. And from 2016, a new communications team was set up at Itemba Labs, and I also put my hand up for this. And for the last couple of years, I was very much involved in communications, developing a newsletter, working on the website, exhibitions, and making sure that Itemba Labs was made visible in the broader community. A particular passion of mine has always been training, mentoring, and coaching. And this is a role that I feel quite comfortable in and hope to continue with as I go along. This led to me lecturing part-time in library and information science at CPUT, then Cape Technikon, for quite a number of years. And I still find immense joy when I meet up with my past students during LIASA conferences, and I see how far they've come and the leadership positions they've taken. So it is very satisfying to become involved in training of others. During the time at Itemba, we regularly hosted interns in library and information science, also office management and technology, as well as journalism and communication. And that gave me the opportunity to do some training, mentoring, and coaching. So that brings me to my LIASA journey. Also, many years, if you look back on it, as soon as I qualified, I joined the then Library Association, SALIS. I thought it important to be involved in the bigger world of the profession, and also to be able to gain knowledge from peers. As I was a young, newly qualified librarian and wanted to learn more. I remember particularly one specific aha moment when I attended a SALIS meeting. And I was sitting in the audience, and I was looking at the person who was the chair of SALIS, the branch at that time. And I knew, and I told myself, this is what I want to do. I want to be in that position. I want to stand in front, and I would like to be able to work with a team of people within the profession. And I think that's where my journey started, in involvement in the greater profession. Of course, after 1994, we saw the birth of LIASA, and I was privileged enough to attend the Constituent Conference in July 1997, but before that was also involved in some of the discussions and preparations and working on a regional constitution. And here I want to point out that true leadership was shown by a group of individuals who believed that change was necessary at the time. They started a movement. They stepped forward. And it was not necessarily popular. But by doing that, they created a movement of people, and that led to the founding of LIASA. And here we are, 25 years later. So this is an example of the power of strong and visionary leadership. It is not always the popular decisions or the popular things that you have to do. Sometimes it is more difficult to have to change as your environment changes. They saw and envisioned a different future for the association in South Africa, one where it was inclusive, where everybody could participate and nobody was excluded from participating. And they made it happen. So I would just like to refer you, if you ever are interested, to read what the late Claire Walker wrote. She wrote a very comprehensive history of LIASA and of that time, about that period of change and how it happened. It's called LIASA 1997 to 2007 at the time. And it makes for very interesting reading and gives you a lot of context in terms of where LIASA started and what the vision was of the association. And this should give some insight into the process. I then, of course, became a founding member of the Western Cape branch of LIASA in 1997 and was very involved from that stage in activities of the association. I held various positions on the Western Cape branch committee, also including the chair, which led to a position on the representative council, of course. I will again come back to the fact that it is important to start small. You don't have to jump in right at the top, but get involved so that you can get context and understand the association. I was elected as deputy president in 2002 to 2004. At that time, there was not yet the president-elect position in place. And it was my great privilege to be president of LIASA from 2010 to 2012. And of course, this has now led to being an honorary lifelong member of LIASA, which is a wonderful honor, serving as a member of the President's Forum, which is a group of past presidents who provide some support and consult with the current ExCos. I have been chair of the LIASA Conference Program Committee for some time and is currently still acting in that position. And of course, one can actually expand your wings a little wider. And this is some of the opportunities one can see when you work within the association. Make yourself available, be a volunteer. I was also serving on the IFLA Africa Standing Committee, one term as chairman, giving, of course, a lot of opportunity to interact with the continent, with the colleagues there, and learning so much more about how libraries and the associations are functioning on the continent. And of course, in the rest of the world. It opens doors to the rest of the world and to so much more, even if you start small. Of course, as president, I was involved with Skexel, was privileged to attend Skexel conferences. I served on the South African Book Development Council board, as well as the advisory boards for the UCT, DKIS, and the Office Management and Technology qualification for CPUT. So a few highlights that I'd like to share, especially during the time of my presidency. And then I think it will become clearer also the value that it can have for anybody who participates on a voluntary basis in the broader association. I was able to contribute to the grant application to Carnegie for 10 million Rand for the Next Generation Public Librarian Scholarship Project. That was during 2011 to 2015. And the implementation of that program in 2012. That was very exciting that we were able to provide that opportunity to LIASA members. During that time, with that scholarship, we were able to go and lobby the DVC at UCT, as well as the heads of public library systems. To continue the postgraduate that we had, the scholarship, which made that so much easier, and staff members could participate through scholarships. Very exciting, of course, and a highlight for me was the IFLA 2015 conference that took place in Cape Town. During my presidency, I led the bid process to bring IFLA to South Africa in 2015, once again, served on the IFLA conference committee, and of course, the great pleasure of hosting the world's libraries in Cape Town in 2015. It is really opens the world and gives one the opportunity to meet so many people from across the world. Yes, and I also signed the Berlin Declaration on Open Access on behalf of LIASA during that time. But highlights for me, furthermore, was the travel opportunities that I had nationally, regionally, as well as internationally. It opens your eyes to what is happening across the world, and whether in South Africa, you realize whether you in South Africa are on track, if you are ahead of time, if there's something you can learn. And often we could share, of course, what we were doing in South Africa. And then the camaraderie that one encountered. I really enjoyed the camaraderie, the pleasure of working in a team, the pleasure of working towards a goal. We worked hard. There were nights that we worked right through. There were often difficulties, but there was such a sense of teamwork. And I think you have to remember that. You are part of a team, and it is only through the whole team participating that you can reach your end destination. So I think many people want to ask, why? Our days are full. We have our daily jobs to go to, our families. Why get involved with LIASA? And of course, the age-old question, what does LIASA do for me? I'm going to give you a little bit of a view of what you can do for LIASA and what LIASA can mean for you when you get involved. It leads to personal growth. By being involved on a leadership level, even if you start small, putting your hand up, you learn so much. You have to mature, communication skills, being able to meet and communicate with people from all walks of life, diverse communities. It certainly stretches you as an individual, matures you, and leads to great personal growth, which benefits your career. There are so many skills that you can acquire through volunteering on the structures of the association. And I want to just mention a few. There's actually so much, but some skills that I'm referring to are, administrative, minutes, reports, presentations, writing articles, financials, budgets, forecasts, planning, meeting protocols, which really helps in your normal day-to-day job. Chairing meetings, of course, speaking in public, great stretch for many people, but a wonderful skill to acquire. Conferencing, training opportunities, strategic planning, an area that I have always not felt all that comfortable in, but I learned so much in terms of strategic planning from my colleagues on the teams that I worked with. Public relations, of course, government protocols and processes, which is important, as you need to understand that to work with the government as they provide the funding for most of our libraries. You interact with a variety of professionals, not just in the library field. Learn more about your profession. Very important, career advancement. You meet potential employers that can help advance your career by being involved and attending conferences, attending meetings. Those people that you make that network of contacts with are critical for your career advancement. So many opportunities on the national, regional, and international exposure that you can attain. IFLA, AFLIA, SCEXL, and the world's LIS landscape. There's much to learn and much to share. In this way, you contribute to the development of LIS, looking at where we find ourselves now with the pandemic and that everybody had to adapt and change the way that they did things. So you can share and learn so much by this exposure. And then, of course, mentorship. You can find a mentor and you can be a mentor within the profession. A couple of tips or takeaways. There are actually many, but I want to just share a few key ones with you. It is important to master personal leadership, or as I said, self-leadership. Very important to maintain your integrity. And this can be done through small things. It is the little things that actually make people trust you and know that you will do what you have said you would do, that what you've set out to do. And they can trust to follow you. Little things like always be on time. Be on time for a meeting. Don't waste somebody else's time. In that way, you are respectful. If you respect others, they will respect you. Do what you promise to do. If you commit to achieving something or doing something, do that. If you can't do it, you need to not promise, or you need to be able to admit and say, this is why we were not able to do this. Lead by example. It is important to know that if you have followers, they will look to you to be an example. Of course, always professionalism and excellence in what we do. And this is, again, it's written into the constitution of LIASA. The fact that LIASA is a professional body that maintains certain standards. We cannot sell the library as an institution if we are not professional and if we don't excel in what we do. That is very important. in a career path, or even if you have aspirations of leading within the association or within your career, always set personal goals. You have to imagine them, visualize them, write them down, know where you're going. And coming back to where I said I had an aha moment, when I had a long-term view of where I wanted to see myself, I started setting those personal goals. And then, for instance, you can start small. Get involved. Attend your LIASA meetings, attend the webinars, and start putting your hand up when there are opportunities for doing something. If there's some activity happening, make yourself available, get involved. Make yourself available for elections. Find the niche that you have a passion for, because that would bring you very far. Seek those opportunities and step up when those opportunities occur. So if you set your goals, you know where you want to go, you will see the opportunities. And when they come, step up to it. Make use of it. Even if it frightens you, sometimes it can be scary, but sometimes you have to do something that frightens you. And of course, find a mentor or a coach. This is very important. Have a role model. I spoke about role model before. If you have role models that you look up to, you can emulate or try to emulate certain characteristics. Look at the characteristics of a particular leader that you like, that you can find an affinity with, and align yourself with that. Find a mentor and be a mentor, because it is critical for the association that we continue. We will have leaders who have been around, who need to hand over the baton to the next generation. So it's not only about finding yourself in a leadership position for a long time, but it is being able to hand it over, to share what you've learned, to share your knowledge and experience. So those are a few tips or takeaways that I hope will inspire you. So looking into the future, my question to you is, you have to ask yourself, what can I do for LIASA and the profession? What kind of a leader am I? I really like a piece written by John C. Maxwell. He talks to developing the leader within you. So the notion that everybody has an inner leader, you just have to develop that leader, let it free and become involved. I personally feel that the experiences I've had over the years with the association, with volunteering, has brought me more benefits than I can actually articulate. So think about it. What kind of a leader can you be for the association and for the profession? And I thank you. I do hope that there might be some chats and some conversations, and I'd be happy to talk to you around those. Thanks, Ingrid.
Thank you, Naomi. That was very, very interesting, and I can see your passion in the way that you have described your career advancement, and we really thank you for your input and for all that you have done for the profession so far. Okay, so now we move over to the conversation part. It is a two-way conversation, so the floor is open for questions or comments. Mercer? will handle the questions. Ursula, can I hand over to you?
Yes, Ingrid. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good morning, colleagues. My name is Meshia Mariana, and then I'll be facilitating the Q&A. Naomi, thank you very much for your presentation. I'll start with the questions from the chat, but at the moment I don't see any questions. So I'll open the floor to colleagues. Please feel free to ask questions. You can raise your hand, then you will be noted. Colleagues, this is a conversation. Let's talk. Okay, I see there's a question there from Uyanda. The question says, how would you advise a person who would like to advance from a public library to an academic library or a special library? Naomi?
Yes, thank you for the question. Yes, I, as you will recall, I made that transition. I had a fair amount of experience in a public library at the start of my career. And I learned a lot about the profession and about particularly providing information on such a wide level to adults, to children, and then moving to an academic library where, of course, I was introduced to the research and academic environment. Look, I think my advice would be the basic principles of providing information remains the same. So your qualification, your training prepares you for being able to provide access to information. I've been known to often say, you don't have to know everything, but you need to know where to find the right information. And another basic principle I think that I recall from my early studies is that you need to know your users. So I think you just have to jump in. You know, obviously, people often want experience if you join a new sector, but if you can convince them of your skills of finding information and that it is just a question of understanding the new environment, access to information is the same whether it's in a public library, academic or special library. The environment and context is different though, and the places where you find the information. I hope that helps.
Okay, thank you, Naomi. There's another question. It says, what insight would you like to share about leading during times of crisis and difficult times?
Yes, Fatima, I see that was your question. Of course, you will encounter as a leader, you will encounter difficult times. You won't always have everybody agreeing with you in terms of where you're going or what needs to be done. My advice is you have to consider all the factors, you know, of what is happening, what is the crisis, what is the difficulty, what are people unhappy about, and then gather people around you that have the necessary knowledge about that particular area or subject. As a leader, you don't always know all the answers. Mm-hmm. You need to gather the people around you. You need to consult widely, talk to everybody, be open. And I think it's important to talk to the people who are involved in the crisis, you know, or who needs who needs to understand what is happening. Consultation, teamwork, it's not a one-man show, but you have to, as the leader, step up, and you have to be decisive, and you have to be confident in handling the crisis or the difficult time.
Okay, thank you, Naomi. Colleagues, is there any other questions from the floor? Please just raise your hand and then you'll be noted. Okay, Naomi, there's a question here. How did you handle conflict management in your career path and your leadership role?
Yes, again, it is not easy, and you don't always know what to do in times of conflict. So for me, it is always about taking a deep breath and remaining calm and getting all the parties in the conflict around the table and listening to everybody. So stay calm, listen to everybody, give everybody the opportunity to participate and to share their point of view, so that you can understand. And in that way, you can usually reach a point of compromise when it is conflict. It is certainly not always clear, but it is important not to get emotional. One has to stay calm, and the listening skills. I think that is what I try to do when I engage with conflict, whether it was in my daily work environment or even in the broader association. And there's always challenging times. I mean, one encounters hectic meetings, disagreements, people who don't agree. But instead of fueling the fire, you need to be able to douse the fire and perhaps propose a different approach.
Yeah, I hear you. Emotional intelligence and listening skills are very important in conflict management. Colleagues, I don't see any further questions, and no, even there are no hands, people raising their hands here. So in the absence of any other questions, I'll then hand over to Ingrid. Thank you, Naomi.
Pleasure. Thank you, Mersha.
Thank you, Mersha. Yeah, it's we have a very good idea of how you have progressed through your career, and we thank you for that. We would like to, before we close, have a photo session. So Naomi, you can take down your, stop sharing your presentation, and we would like everyone to put on their cameras so that we can see you, and then we would like to take a group photo. Sarah, if I could just ask you to please do that for me. Thanks.
Okay, Ingrid, that's fine.
Hi. Good morning, everyone. Once again, I'd like to thank you all for attending here this morning with us. And many thanks and much appreciation must also go to Naomi for sharing her story and knowledge with us this morning. Naomi's career progression highlights how starting small can lead to great things, from local involvement with LIASA to more global participation with organizations like Skexel and IFLA. And I believe our community has been very fortunate to benefit from her dedication. So I see everyone who would like to participate in our screenshots is putting on their cameras. And let's just take a look here. I think LIASA office, I believe, do you have the option to remove the attendees from the screenshot that do not want to participate?
That's correct. So they are not on my screen anymore.
Okay, would
So-
you like to handle the screenshot from your side then?
Sure, I can do that, no problem.
Thanks very much.
Right, everybody look into your cameras
Smile.
and smile. I think we're just going to take another one. Always good to have a backup. Awesome, thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you very much to everyone attending and participating this morning, and also to my fellow ICBIS committee members. Also, I must thank very much the LIASA National Office for their technical support this morning. I hope that everyone found some inspiration and value from our presentation. And yes, I wish you all the best for the rest of your day. Take care, everyone.
Thanks. Bye-bye. Bye, everybody.
Thank you. Goodbye. Thank you very much for attending. We really appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Naomi.
Pleasure.